Noah Fafita back for another season as the starting quarterback for Arizona, but he is losing his biggest target from last season in Tito McMillan. The Wildcats are going to have to replace him, and that is a tall order. I think that the Arizona offense might take a little bit of a step back and have to rely more heavily on Fafita being an accurate passer with some younger guys in the wide receiver room, but he'll have a little bit of time with these first two games to get situated with his new receiver room. First up is Hawaii. That should be a very easy win. Same with Weber State. And then it's a non conference matchup with Kansas State. Yes, they're both in the Big 12, but they scheduled this before Arizona left the Pac 12 for the Big 12. So this game does not count towards the conference standings. But unfortunately for Arizona, Kansas State returning Avery Johnson at quarterback. Even though Arizona is at home, Kansas State is the better team here. And I do believe this is where Arizona will drop their first game.
After a bye week, they are going on the road to face Iowa State. That's a tough back-to-back game right there against two of the four teams we think are the best in the Big 12. Iowa State is returning Rocco Becht as their starting quarterback after a very successful season that led Iowa State to the conference championship game, which they were ultimately blown out by that buzzsaw that was the Arizona State Sun Devils. But this Iowa State team has a lot to replace as well, with their top two wide receivers both going to the NFL and getting drafted by the Houston Texans. So Iowa State needs to find people to fill that role, but I think overall this offense is going to be much better than this Arizona offense. Because like Jonah was saying, Tedero McMillan is the biggest contributor Arizona had last season, and he's off to the NFL. For reference, he had 1,319 receiving yards last season. The number two wide receiver on Arizona last year had 323 receiving yards. That's an 1,000 yard difference. They need desperate help in the wide receiver room, and they've got a couple people coming in the transfer portal, but it's not going to be enough, especially on the road against the Cyclones. They're going to drop two in a row here before a game against Oklahoma State. The Cowboys were a very disappointing team last year. Ollie Gordon was not the same running back he was 2 years ago. And he was the focal point of the offense going into the season. And if he wasn't 100%, the Cowboys were going to struggle. And that's exactly what happened, finishing winless in the Big 12, and they are looking like they might finish winless once again. There's really nothing to write home about here. Arizona will be the better team here. Noah Fafita will be able to get a Big 12 win against a very bad Oklahoma State team.
Then it's BYU. Jake Retzlaff returning at quarterback, or at least we think. Currently, some allegations against him, but we'll let the courts decide on that. And for right now, he's still a member of the football team. So we will treat BYU as having him as their starting quarterback for the season, which makes them a very, very good team. And I do think that BYU is significantly more talented than Arizona all around. This is a game that is really tough in my mind for Arizona to win, even though they're at home. I just don't think that they can compete with the Cougars. I think they drop to 3-3 here before a road trip to Houston. The Cougars bringing in Connor Weigman from Texas A&M to be their starting quarterback. And I think he's going to do a really solid job. A lot of people think that Houston is going to be a good team this season. And I do think they have the potential to make a bowl game. I'd put around the same tier as Arizona. And really, this game could go either way. The Wildcats we have is just slight favorites. And even though they're on the road, I think this is a game that they can win and one that they might need to with how difficult this stretch is down the road. They'll move to 4-3 before their last bye week.
And coming out of that bye week, they will take on Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. But this Colorado team is going to look very different with Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter off to the NFL. They have Liberty quarterback Caden Salter transferring in, and there's a lot of hype surrounding him and how he is going to be a very good quarterback to replace Shadur Sanders. It's just going to come down to can the weapons around him step up as well because there's a lot of turnover in the wide receiver room. The running game, which was not very effective or part of the game plan for the Buffaloes last season, is also going to be pretty bad next season as well. And defensively, with Travis Hunter gone, considering he was the focal point of that defense, I don't know how good Colorado will be next year. But against Arizona, I really think they will be the better team, the more talented team at least, especially on the road for the Wildcats here. Boulder is becoming one of the tougher places to play since Dion has been the head coach there. I think Arizona is going to drop to 4-4 right here.
Then it's back home for the Wildcats to face the Kansas Jayhawks. Jalen Daniels returning at quarterback. He is somebody who has constantly had hype surrounding him during his college football career, just never really been able to live up to that. Same with Kansas. For a while, they were the worst team in the Power Five. Now, people have had expectations for them to win, eight, nine, maybe even 10 games at some point, and they seem to just be falling short constantly. It's tough to say whether or not they can actually break through this season. And without definitive proof, which we have not seen yet, it's most likely going to be more of the same. I think that Kansas going on the road to a team like Arizona, this is definitely a game that Arizona can win. Fafita and Daniels going to be a great battle of dual threat quarterbacks. And in this case, we're going to take the home team. Arizona pulls off just a slight upset here over the Jayhawks to move to 5-4.
Following week on the road once again, this time to face Cincinnati. Brendan Sorsby is back as the starting quarterback for the Bearcats after a relatively good season statistically, but record-wise, the Bearcats have not been the same since their college football playoff appearance a handful of years ago. I do think there is some room for improvement, and I think they will see some more success this season with yet another season under Brendan Sorsby. I do think it will be a good quarterback battle, and defensively, Arizona might be able to shut down some of the Bearcats' offense as the secondary is returning a lot of production, and they have their sack leader from last season in Trey Smith returning. I do think the road environment will be the tipping point here in the Bearcats' favor. I think the experience of Swordsby is going to be enough for Cincinnati to get a Big 12 win here over the Wildcats.
And then it's back home against Baylor. And this is going to be an interesting matchup because Baylor is a team that we are actually very high on. Sawyer Robertson returning at quarterback, as well as a lot of other pieces across this team, especially the defense. The defense should be much improved for the Bears this year, which was one of their weak points last season. I do think that Baylor has some serious potential to maybe make a push towards the Big 12 title. And this is a really, really good team that Arizona is going to have to compete with. But if we know anything about the Big 12, it's that it is unpredictable. So our goal is to also be unpredictable, which is why we are taking Arizona to beat Baylor, a team that we think is much better than them. But upsets happen all the time in this conference. We're going to do our best to find them. This is one that we think could actually happen later on in the season.
And once again, I think it is going to be Arizona's defense that will keep them in this game. Like I said, the secondary is intact for the most part, bringing in one transfer who's expected to start in Javion Cole from Texas, as well as a defensive lineman from Texas in Tioli Savea. Sorry if I botched that name, but if those players were good enough to get recruited by Steve Sarkisian at Texas, then I am sure they're still going to be absolute studs at Arizona. And I think that will be the difference maker with the home field advantage to beat Baylor. The following week, I don't think there's going to be that much of an upset potential here on the road against Arizona State. Yes, it is a rivalry game, and rivalry games tend to have upsets here and there, but this Arizona State team, after such an incredible season last year, and this Arizona State team is returning around 18 starters from last season, including starting quarterback Sam Levitt and lead wide receiver Jordan Tyson, both top 100 players in college football, probably top 50 going into next season as well. This Arizona State team, even with Cam Skattebo leaving for the NFL, is going to still have a prolific offense. I think the defense will take strides next season after having a pretty solid year, but I think they can always improve, especially after the Texas loss that was just down to the wire. This Arizona State team, I think, has a very solid chance of going back to back as Big 12 champs, and they will get a pretty easy win over this Arizona team. Once again, it is a rivalry game. Upsets can happen. Noah Fafita might return to form that we saw 2 years ago. I just don't think the weapons around him will be enough to elevate this team to beat Arizona State.
Our way too early projection was 5.6 wins for the Wildcats, and we had them going 5-7 originally. We do think now that they can make a bowl game, and that projection stayed basically the same at 5.65 and 6.35, 3.35 wins in the Big 12. The floor for Arizona, I do think, is 5-7. We had them losing the majority of those, 50-50-ish games. The ceiling, though, as high as 9-3. In the Big 12, there's so much parity between these teams that if Arizona has a really good season, I do think they can get as much as 9 wins. But some of these teams, like Arizona State, are just so talented. We can't really see Arizona beating them, which is why the ceiling's not up to double-digit wins, just there at 9-3. But we're going with 6-6 and a bowl game for the Wildcats this season. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.